There's a pain so intense your brain just quits. Not dies, quits. Like an employee walking out mid-shift. Meet Bob. Bob is about to experience all of this. He didn't volunteer. Bob doesn't get a vote. This isn't a ranking of damage. It's about the moment pain becomes the only thing that exists. When pain becomes the only thing your brain can process. The rule? Pain is ranked by how completely it takes over your brain at its peak. Can you still think? Or are you just a nervous system on fire? This is inspired by the Schmidt Sting Pain Index, created by Justin Schmidt, an entomologist who spent 40 years letting insects sting him on purpose. This was his job. Schmidt rated pain on a scale of 1 to 4, using descriptions like sharp, piercing, and relentlessly boring, and like a match head that flips off and burns on your skin. We're expanding that concept to every type of pain that matters, including the ones your body invents for no reason. From I can handle this to there is no more me. And number 1, no blood, no wound, no external cause, just your brain deciding to attack itself. You're watching a video about suffering. Really reflects well on both of us. Number 10, the pain where you think you're still in control. Bob eats too much meat. His body turns it into acid. The acid becomes crystals, sharp crystals, growing inside his toe joint. Bob's diet turned into geology, inside his foot. Like if Bob was walking on Legos, except the Legos are inside your foot. Bob tries putting on a sock. The fabric feels like being filed down by a cheese grater made of bees. Bob removes the sock. Bob accepts barefoot life. He tries ice. Worse. Heat. Also worse. His toe has opinions. Bob tries walking normally. The toe punches him from inside. His foot, the pain is constant, throbbing, like someone hammering a nail into bone. But the nail is already in, and they're just hitting it for fun. Bob learns to walk like a burglar. Heel first. Weight distributed. No sudden moves. He crosses his living room in 45 seconds. It's 8 feet. Bob didn't do anything wrong. He ate food. His body decided Bob needed to be punished. Bob's toe is now in charge. Bob is just a transportation. Bob can still choose not to walk. The next pain removes choice from the equation. Number 9. Bob drinks 2 cups of water a day. Bob thinks this is normal. Bob's kidneys disagree. Kidney stones. Your body's geology project when you forget to hydrate. Bob's kidneys need to filter minerals. Without enough water, the minerals stick together. They form a sharp rock inside him. Bob's body just grew a weapon to use against Bob. The rock is 4 millimeters wide. The tube it needs to pass through is 3 millimeters. Bob's body decides to push. Each squeeze is a new wave of pain. At 3 a.m., Bob wakes up to the first wave. It feels like someone reached into his back, grabbed his kidney, and tried to wring it out like a towel full of broken glass. The waves keep coming. Every few minutes, another contraction. The rock doesn't move. The pain does. Bob cycles through every position his spine can make. His body is searching for the angle where the rock cooperates. That angle doesn't exist. Bob calls his doctor at 4 a.m. The doctor says, drink water and let it pass. Bob asks for alternatives. Drink more water. 6 hours later, Bob passes the stone. He's filtering his own piss through a strainer at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. Bob keeps the stone in a jar. Proof that 4 millimeters held him hostage because he didn't drink enough water. Bob could at least move during that. The next one locks his body in place. Number 8. Bob touches something hot for 1 second. His body responds by exposing every nerve ending. 2nd-degree burns. The level where your skin stops being a barrier and becomes a liability. Here's what happens. Bob's outer skin layer is gone. The dermis, where all the nerve endings live, is now outside, exposed to air. The same air that never hurt before. That air is now a war crime. Your nerves are screaming at the wind. The damage is already traveling deeper. Heat doesn't stop when you leave. It keeps cooking. Bob runs cold water over his hand. The water feels like being stabbed by 1,000 tiny knives made of ice. He wraps it in gauze. The gauze is also knives now. Everything Bob owns has declared war on his hand. Bob tries to think. Hospital, car keys, drive. But each thought is interrupted by his hand screaming. His nervous system is broadcasting an emergency at full volume, and his brain can't hear anything else. Bob tries to make a fist. His hand says, we don't work here anymore. Bob's hand has quit. Bob is still attached to it. He drives to the ER using only his left hand. He runs 2 red lights. Bob looks like he's being electrocuted in real time. At the ER, the nurse asks, how did this happen? Bob makes sounds, high-pitched breathing, hissing. The nurse writes down, patient patient nonverbal. Bob is verbal. His hand is just louder. The nurse gives Bob morphine. 20 minutes later, Bob remembers how to form sentences. Turns out you need functional scheme to have a personality. Bob asks how long until it heals. The nurse says 2 weeks. Medical science looked at burns and decided time would handle it. Bob touched something hot for 1 second. His body is punishing him for 2 weeks. Medical bill arrives 3 days later. Bob is being punished twice, and Bob at least touched something. The next pain doesn't ask permission. Number 7. Bob brushes his teeth. His face responds by tasing itself. Trigeminal Neuralgia, the condition where your facial wiring becomes a prank that never ends. Here's what happens. The trigeminal nerve runs through your face. It's supposed to report normal things. A breeze, a touch, your cheek existing. Instead, the nerve gets compressed or damaged or just decides chaos is fun. Now it sends pain signals about nothing. Your face is fighting ghosts. A built-in taser with a mind of its own. The pain is instant, electric, sharp, like leaking a 9-volt battery, except the battery is inside your cheekbone and you can't stop leaking. Then it stops. No warning when it starts. No schedule. Just your face randomly deciding to electrocute you for existing. Bob stops brushing his teeth. Vibrations are triggers. Bob stops chewing on his right side. Movement is a trigger. Bob's face now has more restrictions than airport security. Bob sits in his living room. A draft from the window touches his cheek. The nerve fires. Bob's face is just being an asshole. Bob starts moving his jaw in slow motion, like a bomb disposal expert, but the bomb is his own skull, and it's already armed. People at work think Bob is being weird. Bob is trying not to get electrocuted by his own face. Bob's dentist sends a reminder for his 6-month cleaning. Bob calls. Bob explains he has trigeminal neuralgia. The dentist says, "We can be gentle." Bob asks if they can clean his teeth without involving his face. The dentist hangs up. They call this the suicide disease. Not because it kills you, because living in fear of your own face stops being alive. Bob is currently afraid to yawn. Yawning requires a face. Medicine offers pills or surgery. Bob picks pills. The pills make him tired. Now Bob is sleepy and scared of his face. Bob's face is in charge now. Bob just pays rent. And Bob at least had warning triggers. The next pain has no triggers at all. Number 6. Bob swats an ant. The ant responds with 24 hours of violence. Bullet ant. Named after the pain, not the size. Because feels like being shot is accurate marketing. The ant injected ponera toxin. The venom activates every pain receptor in his hand at maximum volume. For an entire day. No tissue damage, no swelling, just pain with no off switch. Like if your hand was on a hot stove that isn't there. Justin Schmidt rated this a 4.0, the highest score on his pain index. His description: pure, intense, brilliant pain. Like walking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch nail in your heel. Bob's description: a sound he didn't know his throat could make. Bob's hand locks. His fingers curl. Bob's nervous system just voted him out. Bob tries to think about work. His brain says the hand is using all available processing power. Thinking is a premium feature Bob no longer has access to. Ice water does nothing. The venom has a contract. 24 hours. No negotiations. Hour 12. Someone brings food. Bob can't hold a fork. Bob eats with his left hand like an animal. Hour 24. It stops. Bob moves his fingers. They work. Bob doesn't feel relief. Bob feels like a hostage expected to go back to work on Monday. Indigenous tribes do this on purpose, multiple times, as a rite of passage. Bob thinks those tribes are insane. Bob is correct. 24 hours to learn one fact. Some ants are worse than others. This information cost Bob a full day. Wikipedia is free. The ant is fine. Probably told its friends. Bob is not fine. Bob doesn't trust the ground anymore. And that was pain in one spot. The next one doesn't pick a spot. It picks all of them. Number 5. Bob steps on a rock. The rock has 13 venomous spines and a grudge. Stonefish, most venomous fish on earth. Looks like a rock, acts like a landmine. Bob steps on it. 13 spines inject venom deep into his foot. The venom attacks nerves and kills tissue, both at once. Bob's foot is dying while Bob is still attached to it, like injecting lava directly into bone. Bob screams. Not a choice, a reflex. The pain is instant, burning, electric, chemical. Bob's foot stops being a foot and becomes a disaster Bob is standing on. Bob falls, can't stand. His nervous system files a restraining order against weight bearing. Bob's foot is now in charge. Someone asks what happened. Bob makes sounds, variations of please. Bob's foot swells, turns purple, the tissue necrotizes in real time, filing for bankruptcy at the cellular level. Fishermen have been documented offering cash to boat crews to amputate on the spot. Real money, just take the foot. The pain is that persuasive. Bob understands. Bob would like to discuss amputation as a medical option. The medics say no. Bob offers to pay extra. Still no. Bob's foot is holding him hostage. Nobody will help him negotiate. Apparently, removing functional limbs violates medical ethics. Bob thinks medical ethics haven't been stung by a stonefish. Antivenom helps. Eventually. 12 hours of eventually. Bob is legally required to keep his foot. His foot held him hostage and won. The stonefish hasn't moved. Doesn't need to. Just waits for the next person to make Bob's mistake. The ocean has infinite patience and 13 spines per stonefish. And that was external pain. Something Bob stepped on. The
next one comes from inside. Number 4.
Bob sees a wasp. Bob backs away. The wasp stings him anyway. Tarantula Hawk. A wasp the size of your thumb with a stinger designed to paralyze spiders 8 times its size. Bob is not a spider. The wasp doesn't care. Bob gets stung on the arm. The venom hits his nervous system like an electrical surge with no breaker. His pain receptors don't report the problem. They just scream at maximum volume until the system crashes. Bob falls. His legs stop working. Bob's nervous system just blue screened. Bob screams. The venom doesn't damage tissue, doesn't cause swelling. It just overloads every nerve in the area. Maximum input, 0 damage. Justin Schmidt, the man who built a career getting stung, rated this a 4.0, his highest score. His advice for anyone stung by a tarantula hawk? Lie down and scream. Schmidt looked at this pain and said the only reasonable action is surrender with volume. Bob is lying down. Bob is screaming. Bob is following medical advice perfectly. The pain lasts 3 minutes, then it stops. The wasp's venom has a timer. 3 minutes of maximum pain, then nothing. Bob stands up. His arm works. No damage. His nervous system just spent 3 minutes overloaded by venom that causes pain and nothing else. The wasp flies away, probably to paralyze a tarantula. Stinging Bob was recreational. Bob's crime, existing near a wasp. The sentence, 3 minutes of his brain temporarily quitting. There's no toughing it out, just failure with sound effects. Schmidt turned dozens of stings into a career. Bob turned one sting into a driveway meltdown. And that was a wasp, something outside. The next pain doesn't come from outside. It comes from everywhere at once. Number 3. Bob is lighting a barbecue. Bob grabs liquid alcohol. Bob pours it directly onto hot coals. The fire climbs the stream into the bottle. Bob is holding a flamethrower pointed at himself. Bob's hands ignite. His arms, his chest. Bob is now wearing melted on fire. 3 seconds of bad decisions. 6 weeks of consequences. Bob's skin is gone. Every nerve ending in his hands, arms, and chest is now exposed to air. That air is now a weapon. Like sticking your entire arm in a hornet's nest made of electricity. Pain arrives from everywhere at once. Bob's brain is a small room. The pain is a stadium trying to fit inside. Bob's brain starts shutting down to cope. Memory offline, planning offline, speech corrupted. Bob tries to form the thought, hospital. The thought loads halfway, then collapses. Current task, processing infinite pain. Someone asks what happened. Bob's mouth opens. What comes out isn't language. High-pitched, continuous. Bob is now just alarm sounds with a name. A paramedic asks Bob to rate the pain 1 to 10. Bob tries to say 20. What comes out is breathing, loud breathing. The paramedic writes 10 out of 10. Bob tries to shake his head no. His neck is unavailable. Bob's body has union rules now. They inject morphine, enough to let Bob remember language exists. Bob forms the word help. This counts as a medical miracle. Bob poured alcohol on coals to speed up dinner, got 3rd-degree burns in exchange. And this was Bob's fault, a choice Bob made. The next pain doesn't need choices. It doesn't need fire. It just needs ocean water and bad luck. Number 2. Bob is swimming. Something smaller than his fingernail brushes his arm. Bob doesn't feel it. 30 minutes later, Bob's body decides the end is near. Irukandji Syndrome. A jellyfish the size of a tic-tac. The sting is painless. The bill arrives later. Minute, 30. Pain in Bob's lower back, deep crushing. Then his legs, his arms, everything. Bone pain. The kind that makes you wonder if your skeleton is filing for divorce. Then the doom arrives. Absolute certainty that death is imminent. Now. The feeling isn't Bob's thought. It's chemistry. Bob's brain receives a memo from his hormones. We're dying. Not a drill. Your body hitting the panic button when there's no fire. Bob calls for help, voice shaking. Someone asks what's wrong. Bob doesn't know. Bob just knows it's over. Hospital. Bob begs the doctor to end it. Not the pain, the doom. The doctor writes, sense of impending doom. Irukandji venom floods the system with stress hormones. The lie is extremely persuasive. Hours pass. Medication helps. The doom fades. Bob asks how big the jellyfish was. The doctor holds up 2 fingers. 1 inch. Something the size of a grape convinced Bob he was dying for 6 hours. The jellyfish doesn't have a brain. Bob's brain spent 6 hours filing false death certificates. That was venom. Something Bob touched. The last pain doesn't need touch. Just your brain. Waking up wrong. Number 1. Bob wakes up at 2 a.m. His brain didn't set an alarm. His brain just decided violence. Cluster headache. 1 in 1,000 people get these, called suicide headache. Not because it kills you, because people beg to unsubscribe from consciousness. A blood vessel near Bob's eye swells, for no reason, presses on a nerve cluster. The nerve interprets minor swelling as we're being murdered. The pain is behind Bob's right eye, like someone removing his eyeball with a hot ice cream scoop from the inside. Bob's right eye cries without permission. His eyelid droops. His nostril runs. Right side only. The left side spectates. Bob tries lying down. Doesn't work. Sitting. Still doesn't work. Standing. No difference. Bob paces. 3 steps forward, 3 back. Bob hits his head against the wall. Logic. Maybe a 7 distracts from the 10. Now Bob has both. 90 minutes of Bob's brain attacking itself. Then it stops. Like pulling a plug. 0 damage. Bob's brain simulated being stabbed for 90 minutes. It can happen again. Tomorrow. 3 times a day, then nothing for a year. No pattern. Bob's brain choosing violence on a schedule it won't share. Bob asks why. The doctor says blood vessels. And we don't fully understand. Medication exists. Sometimes works. Bob's crime was having blood vessels that randomly swell. The pain that makes you want to quit doesn't even damage anything. Just suffering. No evidence. So that's it. 10 ways your body can betray you. Ranked by how completely the pain takes over your brain. The worst pain isn't the one that causes the most damage. A bullet does. More damage than a cluster headache. But a bullet doesn't make you pace in circles at 2 a.m., hitting your own skull against a wall. The worst pain is the one that erases you, where Bob stops being Bob and becomes a nervous system filing complaints, where memory, planning, language, all the things that make you a person get deleted to make room for pain. Some of these pains came from Bob's mistakes. Bob poured alcohol on hot coals. Bob swatted an ant. But the worst ones? Bob did nothing. Bob went to sleep. Bob went swimming. Bob existed with blood vessels. And his body thought, perfect, let's simulate death. Your body can't tell the difference between a real threat and a software glitch. A jellyfish the size of a tic-tac can convince your body you're dying. Your own face can become a minefield. Your brain can wake up at 2 a.m. and choose violence for no reason. And medical science gave them dramatic names, prescribed pills that work sometimes. Call it a day. Thanks for watching this video about suffering. You chose to do this. Really reflects well on both of us. If you enjoyed watching Bob lose every fight against his own biology, subscribe. There's more suffering where this came from. Bob is fine, by the way. Well, Bob is Bob. One bad decision or random biological glitch away from experiencing any of this again. Good luck out there.